She whispered 4 words against my ear, and by the time the fireworks started, I had a mother-in-law. Let me back up, because you deserve to know how a man who came to a county fair for a funnel cake ended up married by dinner. My name is Nathan Reeves. I'm 31 years old, and I restore furniture for a living, out of a barn my grandfather built on the edge of Millhaven, the kind of small town where the biggest headline of the year is whether the Founders' Day parade route changes. I take broken chairs, water-stained tables, cabinets nobody else wants, and I bring them back. That's the whole trade. You don't force old wood. You listen to it. Every piece has a grain, a direction it already wants to go, and if you fight that grain, you'll split the thing you're trying to save. My grandfather taught me that with his hands wrapped around mine over a lathe when I was 11, and it's the only philosophy I've ever fully believed in, wood and otherwise. I was standing near the lemonade stand at the Founders' Day fair, sunburned and bored, holding a paper tray of kettle corn, when a woman I had never met in my life grabbed my arm with both hands, pressed herself against my side, and said low and fast into my ear, "Please, I need you to be my husband for the next hour. I will explain everything. Just don't let go of my hand." I looked down at her, brown hair coming loose from a braid, a sundress with a coffee stain she hadn't noticed, and eyes that were doing that thing where a person is trying very hard not to look like they're about to fall apart in public. And behind her, maybe 30 feet away, a cluster of people was walking toward us with the unmistakable energy of a family that has been planning something for months and is thrilled it's finally happening. I didn't ask a single question. I just laced my fingers through hers and said, loud enough to carry, "There she is. I was wondering where you wandered off to." That's how I met my wife. But we've got a lot of ground to cover before we get there. So stay with me, because this one gets good. I should tell you why I said yes to a stranger without blinking, because it matters. 2 years before that fair, I lost my dad. Heart, sudden, no warning, gone between one Tuesday and the next. He ran the shop before I did, and after he died, I did the thing a lot of people do when grief shows up uninvited. I buried myself in work and stopped letting anyone get close enough to ask how I was doing. I dated here and there. Nothing stuck. I told myself I liked it that way, quiet, uncomplicated, nobody's hands in my life but my own. My sister called it hiding. I called it being fine. We agreed to disagree loudly at every holiday. So when a stranger showed up needing rescuing, some part of me that had been sanding the same table edge for 2 years without really feeling anything finally had somewhere to put its hands. If you like stories about ordinary people who end up somewhere extraordinary because they said yes at exactly the right moment, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now, because this channel is full of exactly that, and I don't want you to miss the next one. All right, back to the fair. The family closing in on us belonged to Wren Calloway. I didn't know her name yet, not in that first 30 seconds, but I knew the woman leading the pack was somebody's mother by the way she was already beaming like she'd personally arranged the weather. Behind her walked an older man in a Founders' Day committee polo, 2 teenagers glued to their phones, and one broad-shouldered man in a blazer that was working very hard to look casual at a county fair. He had the kind of smile that had clearly gotten him out of trouble his whole life. I would come to learn his name was Preston, and I would come to dislike him with a speed that surprised even me. "Wren, honey, there you are," the mother said, arms already opening. "And who is this?" Wren's grip on my hand tightened enough to leave marks. "Mom, this is Nathan, my husband." The word landed in that crowd like a dropped plate. The mother's mouth opened and closed twice before anything came out. Preston's smile didn't move, but something behind his eyes did. "Husband," her mother repeated, like she was testing whether the word would hold weight. "Wren Elizabeth Calloway, you did not get married without telling me." It was small, Wren said, and I heard the wobble under the words, the sound of a woman building a bridge one plank at a time while already standing on it. Very small. We didn't want to fuss. I decided the only way this worked was if I stopped thinking of it as a lie and started thinking of it as a job I intended to do well. So I put my free hand out to her mother. Nathan Reeves. I run the woodshop out on Miller Road. Sorry we sprang this on you. Ren was worried you'd want to throw us a party we didn't have room for. Her mother's hand was in mine before her brain caught up with her hand. A woodshop, she said faintly. Well, isn't that? That's very grounded. Preston finally spoke. Didn't realize you were seeing anyone, Ren. Last I heard you were still in the city, still single, still married to your job. He said it warm, easy, the kind of comment built to sound friendly and land like a slap. Small world, you'd find someone right when you came home for this. Small world, Ren agreed. And her voice had gone very smooth, very careful, a woman choosing every word like it might be load-bearing. That was the moment I understood there was a story here I didn't have yet, and that Preston was standing directly in the middle of it. Her father shook my hand next, gave me the long look fathers give, the one measuring whether you're going to be trouble. You're the Reeves boy. Knew your grandfather. Good man. Fixed my kitchen table 30 years ago, still solid. He nodded slowly, like that settled something important. All right then. And just like that, we were walking through a county fair as a married couple, 30 minutes deep into a lie that was gaining relatives by the fence post. We got separated from her parents near the pie competition, and Ren pulled me behind the funnel cake trailer, breathing like she'd been holding it since the lemonade stand. I am so sorry, she said. I panicked. I saw Preston walking toward me with my mother, and you looked like a person who wouldn't make a scene, and I grabbed you. And I am going to owe you for the rest of my natural life. You don't owe me anything yet, I said. You haven't told me what I signed up for. She dragged a hand down her face. Preston is my ex. We were together 3 years, engaged for one of them. And he cheated on me with someone from his office 2 months before the wedding. I found out, I called it off, and somehow, I still don't fully understand the physics of it. Within a month, the story around here was that I got cold feet and humiliated a good man in front of the whole church guest list. Her jaw tightened. My mother has never fully believed my version. She likes Preston. His family and mine go back generations. She's been low-key hoping we'd patch things up ever since. And today is my grandfather's 80th birthday, which the entire family is here for, which means Preston is here, which means my mother invited him. To your grandfather's birthday. She says he's basically family. Ren said it like each word cost her something. I drove 4 hours today telling myself I could handle one afternoon. And then I saw him standing with my mother like he already belonged in the family photo, and every rehearsed calm thing I meant to say just evaporated. And you were standing there with kettle corn looking like the least complicated person at this entire fair, so I grabbed you. She looked at me properly for the first time. I really am sorry. Don't be. I found I meant it. I've got nowhere else to be today, and I've never been anybody's husband before. Figured I'd try it out. That got the first real laugh out of her, short and surprised, like it escaped before she gave it permission. You are taking this remarkably well for a man who got married 30 minutes ago. My grandfather always said the secret to good work is not forcing anything you don't understand yet. Figured I'd apply that here. I studied her. So husband duties. What I need to know. Anniversary. How we met. Whether I take my coffee black so your mother doesn't catch us. Something in her expression eased, like she hadn't expected me to actually help build the thing, just to stand there while she panicked. We should probably agree on a story. So we built one, right there behind a funnel cake trailer with powdered sugar drifting past us like snow. We met at a friend's wedding, we decided. Dated quietly for a year, because Ren doesn't like being the center of attention, and I don't like small talk with people I haven't decided to trust yet, which was, we agreed, at least half true. We got married at the courthouse 2 months ago because neither of us wanted a fuss. I told her I'd take my coffee black, and she told me she can't function before 8 in the morning, and somewhere in the inventing, we stopped performing it and started actually talking. She told me about growing up under a mother who ran the family like a seating chart, always arranging who sat next to whom, always certain she knew best. She told me about the year after the breakup, when she'd moved to the city partly for work and partly to get some air that didn't have Preston's name attached to it. I told her about my dad, about the shop, about the particular kind of quiet that moves into a house after a funeral and just never fully leaves. She didn't rush to fill that silence with something comforting. She just let it sit there and be as heavy as it was, which almost nobody does, right? "You're very calm for a man who just discovered he's married," she said at one point. "I fix things that are broken for a living. This isn't that different." "Am I broken?" "No," I said, and meant it more than the moment probably called for. "You're just standing in the wrong crowd today. That's fixable." We rejoined the family for the potato sack races, and I learned fast that pretending to be married is mostly about the small stuff. A hand at the small of her back, remembering her grandfather's name was Walt, laughing at the right moment so nobody had time to ask a follow-up question. Preston kept circling, casual as anything, dropping little test questions into conversation. "Where do you two get married exactly? Big ceremony or small? Funny, Ren never mentioned you before today." Each time, Ren and I answered in the same easy rhythm, like we'd rehearsed it for months instead of 40 minutes. And each time I watched something in Preston's smile get a little thinner around the edges. It was her grandfather who nearly undid us, and not because he was suspicious, because he was kind. Walt Calloway found us by the horseshoe pit, 80 years old and sharp as a tack, and he took my hand in both of his the way older men do when they mean something by it. "Ren finally brings home a man who works with his hands," he said. "Good. Preston never fixed a thing in his life he didn't pay somebody else to fix." He turned to Ren. "I like this one. You did good, kid." Then, quieter, just to me, "Take care of her. She's had people underestimate her whole life. Don't be one more." I looked over at Ren, who had gone very still, watching her grandfather say the thing she'd apparently been needing someone in this family to say for years, and something shifted in my chest that had nothing to do with the lie we were telling. "I plan on it," I told him, and for the first time all afternoon, it didn't feel like a line I was reciting. The confrontation came at dusk, right as the fairgrounds were setting up for fireworks. Preston caught us near the fence line, away from the crowd, and dropped the friendly mask entirely. "Courthouse 2 months ago," he said. "Funny, because I ran into your cousin Katie last week, and she said you'd been single as of Easter." "That's not 2 months, Ren. That's about 6 weeks, if we're being generous." He looked at me. "What is this? Some guy you grabbed today to make me feel small?" The fairgrounds went quiet around us the way small crowds do when they sense something is about to happen. Ren's mother had drifted close enough to hear. So had her father. I could have let Ren answer. It was her story to defend. But I'd spent an afternoon watching this man work, watching him smile while he cut, and I'd learned exactly one thing that mattered. He was right about the timeline, and he was about to be very wrong about what it meant. "You're right," I said. "We didn't meet at a friend's wedding a year ago. We met about 6 weeks ago at this exact fairground, when your fiancé grabbed my hand, because she needed 1 hour where you didn't get to make her feel small in front of her whole family." I let that land. Everything after that wasn't a lie, Preston. It just happened faster than the story we told her mother, because it turns out some things don't need a year to be real. They just need somebody who isn't you standing next to her. Ren's mother made a small sound. Preston's face went through several colors. "So you admit it's fake," he said, grabbing for the one thread he thought would hold. "I admit the paperwork's new," I said. "Everything else isn't." I turned to Ren's mother. "Ma'am, I understand you like Preston. He's easy to like at a fair. But you should know he's the reason your daughter spent the last 2 years being talked about like she's the one who did something wrong. And I've watched today how hard she's had to work just to stand next to you without flinching. That's not somebody who ran from a good man. That's somebody who survived one that wasn't." Her mother looked at Ren for a long moment, something rearranging behind her eyes. Then she looked at Preston, and whatever she saw there, the thin smile, the scrambling, seemed to finally register as what it had probably always been. "I think," she said slowly, "you should go find your parents, Preston." He went. Nobody stopped him. The fireworks started 20 minutes later, and Ren and I sat on the tailgate of my truck at the edge of the field. The real husband and wife performance finally over, and something quieter left behind in its place. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Tell them it was fake." "I told them it started fast," I said. "Didn't say it wasn't real. Wasn't lying either way." She was quiet a moment, watching the sky go gold and green above us. "My grandfather's going to ask when the real wedding is." "Tell him soon," I said, and surprised myself with how much I meant it. "If you'll have a man you married by accident on a Saturday." She looked at me like she was deciding whether to trust the last 6 weeks of her life to a stranger with sawdust still under his fingernails. Then she took my hand, the same way she had by the lemonade stand, except this time nobody was watching, and nobody needed her to. "Ask me again in a year," she said. "Properly this time." I did. 14 months later, in the same barn my grandfather built, with her grandfather Walt sitting in the front row telling anyone who'd listened that he'd known it was real since the horseshoe pit. Her mother cried through the whole thing and cornered me afterward to say she was sorry it took her so long to see what was standing right in front of her. Preston wasn't invited, and nobody missed him. Ren kept the sundress with the coffee stain. She won't tell me why. I think it's because it was the last thing she was wearing before her life quietly turned into the one she actually wanted, and some things you hold on to just because of what they were standing next to when everything changed. If you've ever grabbed a stranger's hand because you needed 1 hour where nobody could hurt you, or if you've ever been the stranger who said yes without asking why, I want to hear about it. Tell me your story in the comments, and tell me where in the world you're watching from tonight, because it genuinely amazes me how far these stories travel. And be honest with me before you go. If someone grabbed your hand at a fair and whispered, "Pretend we're married," would you have played along like I did? Or would you have pulled back and let them face the crowd alone? There's no wrong answer. There's only the one you'd have to live with. If this one kept you company for a while, tap that like button so it finds the next person who needs it. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because I've got a brand new story for you every single week. I'll see you in the next one.